So let's start with our heading here. We go back. There we go. Okay, so here's our third lesson in audience and purpose and tone. And here we're going to talk about tone. So remember that these lessons are meant to help you with the comprehension check quiz for Unit 2. I don't think it comes up on the information literacy assignment, but we will come back to this in Unit 4 with the critical evaluation. All right? So a few things that you'll be doing with tone. Okay, so tone, when you're reading, is the author's attitude towards the topic. Sometimes people explain this as if the author, instead of having written this and you were reading it separate from them, if they were speaking in front of you, what would their kind of demeanor be? What would their attitude be? Sometimes we can tell that a little bit more easily when we're watching somebody. So you do have to read between the lines a little bit, so to speak, trying to find the tone in something you're reading, all right? The other thing to keep in mind is that there could be multiple tones in a piece of writing. So, you might have an article where they are sympathetic towards one side, towards one group of people, but they're critical of another group of people. Okay, so you might pick up on multiple tones in an article. All right. One of the ways that you could go about identifying tone, sometimes we find it easier in classes. We just look at a list and just, oh, there's the tone. So I'll show you a list in just a minute. But at the very start, you can identify, like, is it generally positive? Is it generally neutral? Is it generally negative? All right. So that's a good start. But then I would like you to try to be a little bit more precise in your description. So if you find something that has a positive tone, is it admiring? Is it curious? Is it amused? If you find something with a neutral tone, are they being factual? Are they being scholarly? If you find something with a negative tone, is it critical, concerned, accusatory, fearful? So you want to try to break that down a little bit more. So I do have linked in our course materials, and I think I lost my mouse. There we go. So open it up here. I did find this kind of nice little website here, and she has a PDF down at the bottom. Well, she doesn't have the PDF, but I think I linked the PDF in our course materials. So she does a really nice job here breaking it down. She has positive tones, but she has positive with like a strong reaction, or positive and more quiet, positive and thoughtful, positive and caring, positive and lively. So she does a really nice job breaking these down for you. Neutral tones, she doesn't really break those down too much because I don't think there's as many of those. But then negative and forceful, negative and uncontrolled, negative and thoughtful, negative and passive. So there's some really, and then just looking at the list, sometimes that helps people identify the tone. You can read and then you can look at that and be like, oh yeah, that is a very supportive tone. Or, oh, yeah, I do think that's a very conversational tone. Okay, so it's just something that you can look at if that helps you. All right, so with that in mind, let's look at some examples. All right, so again, a lot of text on here. My apologies. It was the best I could do with, the slideshow. So I have a couple paragraphs here that are bringing out different tones about the same topic. So let's see if we can go through these. Okay. So we have, supporters of urban green spaces often display a frustrating naivete, pushing for parks and gardens in densely populated urban areas without a practical understanding of the underlying urban challenges. Their idealistic visions clash with the harsh realities of city planning, such as the dire need for housing and transportation infrastructure. Critics argue that these advocates are disconnected from the economic and social realities faced by the majority of urban residents, prioritizing green aesthetics over more pressing urban necessities. This has led to contentious debates, with many viewing their proposal as impractical and a misallocation of scarce urban resources. So we want to think about, what is this author's tone towards people who are pushing for more urban green spaces like parks and whatnot. Again, I would start with identifying whether it's positive, negative, or neutral. But then if you can think about not only is it positive, negative, or neutral, can we get more precise than that? Okay, so take a minute if you need to pause, and then we can look at it together. Okay, so did you think about that a little bit on your own? So let's have a look. So they're definitely, it's definitely a negative attitude towards the supporters of green spaces. I'm going to bring up my tone list here. Is it going to open for me? There we go. Maybe. I don't know why it's not opening. All right. Let me go back to this. And we'll look at negative here. Negative tones. Okay. So I don't think it was very passive. Was it thoughtful? Maybe a little thoughtful. Maybe forceful also. Okay. So then we look closely at this. Like they were kind of accusatory. They were kind of condemning. They were condescending. Like what was the one thing they said? The naivete, frustrating naivete. So that to me sounds sort of condescending. So I'm looking at this column here, and I think that one of these would contempt. Like there's a lot here that I think would really work. Outraged. So I kind of like the condescending and maybe accusing, right? Are there any here? No. Yeah, I think over here, one of these would probably be a pretty good description of that tone. Okay? All right, let's look at another one. Okay. Supporters of urban green spaces are visionaries who recognize the transformative impact these areas have on cities. They champion the cause with unwavering enthusiasm, advocating for more parks and community gardens that not only beautify the city, but also foster communities. I shouldn't be reading it with a tone, should I? I might be giving it away. But also foster community spirit and well-being. Their efforts have led to numerous successful green projects that serve as models for sustainable urban development, proving that when communities come together, they can create thriving green oases and even the densest urban landscapes. So take a minute and think about what tone you hear there. Just first generally think about positive, negative, or neutral, and then we can look a little bit more closely. You can pause if you need to. Okay. Oops, sorry. You're back, aren't you? All right. So the other thing I forgot to, well, we'll go through this one. Okay. So did you think positive here? Very good. All right. So let's find our tone words here. And positive, and I don't think it was reactive. I don't think it was super quiet. Maybe lively. Positive. Well, let's see. Peaceful. I'm looking for like appreciative. Okay. I think appreciative was there. I felt like it was very admiring. I don't see that on this list, but encouraging maybe. Optimistic. Reverent. Supportive was there too. And just because these are in different columns doesn't mean they're all positive words, but we could have supportive in there. Delighted, enthusiastic. I think I heard enthusiastic in there. All right, so let's go back over. Visionaries, yeah. I very much hear optimism, and they even have the word enthusiasm in here. Efforts have led to numerous successful optimism. I think optimistic and admiring come to mind when I look at this one. All right. So again, I sort of was pointing out there positive outcomes, beneficial change, role models. All these like good, all these benefits it's pointing out that's where I hear that optimism, like looking to the future and sounding very hopeful about what these supporters of urban green spaces are doing for the future. Also, like visionaries, that word just kind of has that future feel to it. So, that's where I hear that optimism. Let's go back to the one before it because I forgot to show you what I see in here that sounds critical. Frustrating naivete to me that's kind of condescending, right? Kind of calling them stupid in a nicer way. Without practical understanding of the underlying urban challenges. So again, there's that hint that they don't really know enough. So I think that's a little condescending. The dire need for housing, the harsh realities of city planning, again, kind of hinting that these people don't understand that. And that, again, that to me, that sounds not positive. Sounds very condescending to me. So a condescending tone towards the supporters of urban green, disconnected from reality, impractical, misallocation. So yeah, I hear a lot of language in here that to me sounds condescending. Some of these other ones might work, like condemning and accusing, but that condescending is popping out at me because there is a lot of language in there that implies that these supporters of urban green spaces are lacking knowledge, which isn't nice to say. Okay, so now here's our last one, example 3. Supporters of urban green spaces advocate for the inclusion and maintenance of parks and community gardens in urban planning. They provide evidence and arguments for the benefits of such spaces, including environmental improvement and public health. These proponents work with city planners and organizations to increase the presence of greenery in urban areas, though they also recognize the challenges and complexities involved in balancing urban development with green initiatives. So this sounds also, if we go back to the purpose, and we had informative versus persuasive. This one sounds informative. The other two sounded more persuasive because they were taking a side. And since this one's informative, we hear a much more neutral tone. All right. So it's basically just stating what they do. I don't think there's really any opinion in here. These proponents work with city planners. They also recognize the challenges. Like it just seems very neutral. That's the best word. Let's see if there's anything more like very factual. Factual sounds like it's the best one so far. Knowledgeable, informative, frank. Yeah, I think factual is the best one here. So it's a neutral, factual tone. So what you'll eventually need to be able to do is identify the tone, but also explain why you think it's that tone. So giving examples from the passages that give you that feeling that this is, this is a factual tone, or this is what was the one we said about enthusiastic and optimistic tone, or this one is a condescending tone. So to be able to do that would be your goal. For all of these, as you're moving forward and annotating your articles, annotations will help you with this. Instead of having to go back to an article and start from scratch and read it all over again looking for these hints, one of the things that you can do is you're reading. I mean, you will reread your articles if you're doing something important with it, but this could be something you can add to that list of things you look for when you annotate. So, paying attention to the language and how that affects tone, paying attention to any hints that the author gives about who their intended audience is, paying attention to whether the author is taking a side on a debatable issue or just presenting factual information. All right. So those are some of the things to do moving forward. Let me show you again. We have that, where is it? Oh, I lost it. I have too many tabs open. The worksheet that's supposed to help you. Is this it? No. I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay, I found the worksheet. And again, this is not something that I'm collecting. You can certainly run it by me if you want to before you do the comprehension quiz, but it's really just to help you think through these materials before you go ahead and take the quiz. So paying attention to language, like what language stands out to you? What emotions does the article invoke in you as a reader? So sometimes whatever it's bringing out in you might match with what the author is saying. So like if you're feeling fear while you're reading something, it might be that the author's using a fearful tone. Keep in mind, though, that if you're not the intended audience, you might not be feeling that. All right, so it's kind of a little stretch there, but think about it. If you read the article out loud, how would you naturally say it? So when I was reading that one passage, I was I was kind of reading it in that enthusiastic, optimistic tone because it was hard not to. So you could try that. You could start with generally positive, negative, or neutral, and then look at the lists of tone words to see if there's one that seems to match. And then after that, what are the one or two words that describe the overall tone, and why do you think that? Okay, so that can help you with that comprehension quiz. All right, friends, that's all I have for you right now. And then our next lessons will be going over the Unit 2 summative assignment. So I'll see you over there. All right, take care. Bye-bye.